Business Talks with your host, Kent Adams. Join Kent now as he sits down with business and community leaders to discuss a wide range of important topics in business. Business Talks is brought to you in part by STCU and O'Brien Logistics. Now, here's Kent.
Hello, I'm Matt Coughlin. Welcome to Spokane Business Talks. My guest today is Gary Anderson, who is the lending manager for Snap Financial Access. Gary, welcome.
Thank you, Matthew. It's a pleasure to be here, my friend.
Well, it's great to have you. Gary, a lot of people are aware of Snap generally, but not so many people are aware of Snap Financial Access. Can you take a moment and tell us about Snap Financial Access as a part of Snap and what its mission is and its involvement in the community?
Sure, I'd be glad to. Snap Financial Access is a wholly owned subsidiary of Snap. We provide financing. About half of the loans we do are residential and half are micro-enterprise loans. And by micro-enterprise loans, what I mean is a closely held business of 25 employees or less. Okay. We've been doing it for about 35 years, and we think that it's an important component of the overall Snap mission.
Terrific. And let's just focus on the residential side for a moment. Are these loans that you're extending for people to get a home, to remodel, to pay perhaps past due bills of some sort? Mm-hmm. Can you give us a little color on that?
Generally, what we are offering are loans for people that are in financial distress. A lot of that distress will be elderly homeowners on fixed income that have property taxes due. Okay. Rather than have them displaced and lose their home and become homeless, we often do what are called foreclosure prevention loans. And that keeps people in their properties and allows them the opportunity to decide when they want to sell, and it just gives them a lot better options. And so we do a lot of those, and we do a lot of distressed residential lending that have been referred to us by residential lenders that are fundamentally good loans, but for one reason or another, they just can't do them.
And so when you say they're referred to by residential lenders, in other words, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth by any means, are these essentially loans that a bank can't get comfortable with and therefore they refer them to you?
That's correct. That's correct, yeah.
And I'm just curious from a business standpoint, you're taking on these loans that are perceived to have higher risk. What has been your experience with those loans as a lender?
Our experience is very favorable. As a matter of fact, our charge-off is less than 1% of our portfolio.
That's amazing.
It is amazing. And it's a tribute to the people that I work with, and it's a tribute to the ongoing counseling that we give them, because once they get the loan, it's really the first step in the process. We also want to give them the financial education and the knowledge base so they can successfully repay that loan. So that's part of what we do. And
just staying with residential lending for a second, can loans be obtained to do a significant remodel if for example, some funds are tight for somebody for a temporary period of time, but yet their home is in need of repairs?
Yes, they can. The one thing that we don't want to do is we do not want to compete with traditional lenders, but we want to have a relationship with them that if they do receive loans that for one reason or another they cannot do them, we would like to have them to come to Snap and let us take a look at them. And so we see a lot of opportunities arise that way from lenders.
Okay, interesting. And then you said the other piece of the business is micro-enterprise. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about that.
Micro-enterprise is kind of a misnomer. A lot of people don't understand what that is, but really what micro-enterprise is a business with less than 25 employees. And so what we are trying to achieve is to provide employment opportunities for the people in Spokane to make a living wage and be able to support their families. And a lot of that is done through entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurs typically employ individuals. And so the magic sauce I'm looking for is, are you going to be employing people in the Spokane area? If the answer is yes, then I would like to talk to them.
That's terrific. With respect to these micro-enterprises, are there particular types of businesses that you're more favorably predisposed to than others, for example? Or do you?
I try not to have any preconceptions. I mean, obviously, we can't loan to businesses that are illegal, but other than that, we see all kinds of opportunities. We see software development, we see long-haul truck drivers, we see landscapers, we see manicurists. It's really a full gamut that we see. And again, the key is locally owned, entrepreneur, employing people. So I don't do leverage buyouts. I don't do things that are not going to be able to help an employee base build up the community.
Do you have perhaps an example or two of micro enterprise loans that you've extended in the community and businesses that have been built, employee bases that have been built as well around that business?
Sure. We recently did a medical device business, and it was a situation where the business owner did not want to give up ownership of the business, and he could not get traditional financing because it was a new venture. It came in through an academic organization, and the individual was extremely well versed in the business that he was going into. So we invested about $100,000 to get this business up and running, and I would guess within a year they'll probably do an initial public offering.
No kidding.
Yeah.
An IPO.
Yeah.
From a business that Snap Financial Access
Yes.
essentially helped give birth to.
Yes, we've actually had 2 of those.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. It's amazing the talent that we have in this community.
Yes. Are there, one of the areas that I think about with respect to micro enterprises is restaurants. And oftentimes when you have immigrants who come into America, one of the first businesses that immigrant families will sometimes start are restaurants, yet from a lending perspective, restaurants are notoriously risky to lend to. Is that an area that you find yourself doing business in and doing business in successfully?
We have quite an emphasis on restaurants because I have a colleague on staff that she has actually owned a restaurant on Orcas Island, and is just a fantastic consultant for us at Snap. So we actually have restaurant owners that will seek us out for guidance on opening restaurants. But yes, I do restaurant loans. I would never do one when I was in my banking career, and the primary reason is restaurants are full of risk with very little assets, and so again, what I'm looking at is the character of the borrower and does the business plan make sense, and if it does, then probably we'll finance it.
With respect to business plans, a lot of that becomes a numerical or quantitative exercise. You can use your experience and judgment to look at a set of financials and make certain types of determination, whether it's a conservatively thought out or not. One of the areas that I think is a little more difficult, and you just touched on it, is how does one evaluate character? Are there certain personality markers or certain traits that you're looking for to really get comfortable with someone's character before extending a loan?
Yeah, that's where it really comes into art, not science.
Sure.
Character is extremely important to me. It's the difference between whether or not I'm going to make a loan or not. There's a traditional 4 C's of credit: character, collateral, cash flow. For me, character is number 1, because I have a theory that was told to me by an old credit administrator, and he said, every time you go to a borrower, you should say, I know you can pay me back, but will you pay me back? And it's the will you that you want to make sure of.
Yes, that's great. I'm curious, Snap is known generally for their involvement in the community with respect to the homeless and trying to help them. To what extent have you been involved from a Snap Financial Access perspective in literally helping someone get off the streets, clean up their life, and becoming a productive, contributing member of society with respect to starting a business, employing people, and creating wealth?
Well, that's something Snap's very cognizant of, and I'll just give you a personal story that I think kind of sums it up. And I had a woman come in, and she was talking to me about possibly doing some refinance on her residence, and very professional woman, very successful in her career. And at the end of the interview, she asked me, does Bob Peeler still work at Snap? And I said yes. And for those of you that don't know Bob Peeler, Bob is our patron saint that goes under the freeway every day and looks up to homeless people and makes sure that they're okay.
Right.
Anyway, her comment to me was, if you see Bob, could you tell him thank you because he saved my life 15 years ago? And she was a meth addict on the street. And so that is an example of soup to nuts where it's gone through the entire gamut. It's had a wonderful conclusion, and that's what keeps me coming to work.
That's awesome. In our conversation, we've talked a lot about lending, micro enterprise lending and so forth. Does SNAP get involved at all from an equity perspective? Will they provide capital but become a shareholder essentially in the business?
No, we won't.
Okay.
I always explain to young entrepreneurs, you need to know the difference between equity and debt. This is critical because as you go forward, you will get people wanting to invest equity, but be aware that equity and debt are totally different animals. And the last thing I want is a young entrepreneur to sell out to an equity investor and become an employee for a company that they founded. And so that's one of the reasons why for fairly smaller amounts, $100,000 in those area, I'd like to take a look at them because I just don't think they should sell out that cheaply. I mean, it's they've got a great idea and let them get some traction and go with it. And that's what happened on the two examples I was giving you.
Okay. And not to get, I'm not trying to thread a needle here, but in between debt and equity is convertible debt. Is that something that SNAP would consider?
I'd like to consider it, but I don't think we're there yet.
Okay.
Probably in a decade we'd be able to look at that. But I think that instead of the convertible debt, what we get is we get really, really, really talented people that say, I want to help pay it forward. So they'll end up being volunteers for us or going on our various committees. And this is expertise that we couldn't buy. I mean,
Right.
and so it's just a wonderful payback from the people that we lend money to because most of them will come back and say, how can I help? And I just love that.
And do you find with the base of people that you've helped that it begins to feed on itself, that a lot of the opportunities that come to SNAP now and the people that come to SNAP are essentially referrals more than anything else?
Yes, very much so. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to come on this show is we want to get that word out.
Sure.
That, we are a resource. We're here in the community. We're dedicated to the community. We're lenders, not equity investors. We want to get you in, get you the loan paid off, get you built up, and get you traditional financing. And that's really part of our goal.
That's terrific. Well, with that, I think we're going to take a pause for a little bit, and when we come back, we will continue our conversation with Gary Anderson of SNAP Financial Access.
I'm Nikki Butler, and I'm a regional manager for STCU. My lunch buddy is Nicole.
I'm Brandy Schloss. I'm a regional manager at STCU. My lunch buddy is Angelina. She's grown up with me. I've grown up with her. To see her graduate would be a lot of fun.
Brandy and I have been lunch buddies since the girls were in second grade. It's great that STCU provides me with the opportunity to be part of Reach for the Future. We are committed to the children. We're committed to our community. I'm Nikki.
I'm Brandy.
And STCU is here for good.
O'Brien Logistics would like to invite you to try our local and regional transportation services. With Sprinter vans, lift gates, hot shot flatbeds, and expedited services, our people are ready to step in and help with your transportation needs. Our services are 24/7, 365, and we are trained and prepared to handle air cargo and Canadian shipments. Give us a call at 208-305-2311 or visit our website at o'brienlogistics.net. That's OBRIEN logistics.net.
Welcome back. My name is Matt Koffler, and joining me today is Gary Anderson from SNAP Financial Access, and we're going to continue our conversation. Gary, working for SNAP, I'm sure there's some interaction between the organization and state and local and possibly even federal government entities. Can you talk a little bit about what that relationship is all about and the interaction between the two? And if you don't mind me asking, whether you're getting support the way an organization like SNAP needs to be supported?
Yeah, I'll be glad to address that. Yes, we're very involved with various government agencies. We're a certified development fund investment company, so we do have access to direct treasury money. and we are certified SBA lenders. But we're seeing a paradigm shift in our funding, which I'm certainly aware of, and that is that we need to go into the public market, into the public enterprise sector, and start to receive funding. And we're doing that through various vehicles in combination with banks, and it's been very successful for us, and I think it will be also going on, because banks have Community Reinvestment Act needs and so forth, and so we try to help them achieve that while at the same time being able to offer some lending money to our borrowers. And so it's a very good relationship. It's worked out really, really well. And so I think that will be the future, is the private funding sector. I really do.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, with respect to the banks, you're both, you work cooperatively with them, but you also, in a sense, theoretically compete with them as well. So it's what they call, I think, co-opetition.
Yeah, it's a co-opetition. We're dealing with a lending segment that they generally will not deal with. That is a new enterprise.
Right.
And my 42 years in banking, that's always a catch-all of, well, we need 2 years of financial statements and tax returns. Well, I'm just starting the business. I can't have them. So it's a traditional catch-22.
Sure.
And so now in my position, I can kind of pay that forward. And we're taking new enterprises and we're underwriting them based upon the merit of the enterprise and making a loan based upon that. So that to me is an exciting change, and it's good for the entrepreneur.
You know, from what I understand about SNAP Financial Access, one of the things that impresses me is it's beyond just the lending function and giving people a chance where others won't, okay, or restricted from doing so. You also are able to essentially wrap other services around that person, whether it's a homeless person trying to better their lives, the immigrant who comes into the community, or what have you, and teach them what I would just term broadly as financial literacy. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about some of those services that
Sure.
are provided?
Yeah. On a very broad base, I have two kind of philosophies that I keep in my office, and one is a picture from 1974 of the original owners of Microsoft, and under it I have a little saying that says, "Never kill the dream." Mm. And I really believe that, because when we have an entrepreneur or a residential homeowner or something come in, the one thing I'm very conscious of is, even if I can't give them a loan, I never want to kill that dream. I want them to be able to leave and think, you know, I didn't get the money, but I really have some good ideas. And the other thing I really believe in is that money and knowledge equals empowerment. And I think there's a direct connection to that. And so if we can provide those services to the lower or underserved community to get those two things, money and knowledge, I think it's going to lead to success. And so I'm a big believer in that.
That's great. I'm curious, in working with entrepreneurs, first-time entrepreneurs, have you seen over time certain patterns, if you will, of behavior that tend to be precursors of whether that entrepreneur is going to be successful or not successful?
Yeah, I mean, I think in my experience, the first thing that I ask myself is, are they capable of listening? Most entrepreneurs know more than anything in the world about their specific company, but the secret is not just your specific company, but surround yourself with really smart people that can help you achieve that goal, and recognize that you're not an expert in all areas. And to me, that's one of the critical things that leads to success. Surround yourself with people that know what they're doing. Yeah. You know what you're doing on the business, but you need help. It's like the legs to a stool.
No, that's very well put. I know in my experience with working with entrepreneurs, many are very open to coaching, as I would put it, but there's also, with other types of entrepreneurs, sort of a control issue where, you know, they started, you know, this is their baby. They started it and they feel they have to be an expert in every single piece of it, and not knowing your own weaknesses can often be, you know, detrimental in business. So you kind of have to know what you don't know and be willing
Exactly.
to trust accordingly and bring someone else on board to help you.
Exactly.
Yeah. As you look at SNAP today and the services you offer and so forth, if we're talking, call it 5 years out from now, about SNAP, do you foresee it being different in any way that it is today? Do you see additional services coming online that may not be visible now, or additional capabilities coming online that aren't visible right now?
Yeah, I do. We're embracing technology. One of the things that we're looking at instituting within the next 6 months is called our e-learning platform, which is basically a lifetime internet-based class situation where you can actually participate in the class on an internet basis, and it's called e-learning, and we think that that's probably the future. And it can also help the outlying areas where they physically can't come into the classes, so we can have an e-learning platform that's lifetime on their internet and be able to have interaction. We think that that's going to be an important component in the future. And we're also anticipating what are future trends looking like. I mean, there was just an article in the paper that the middle class is the lowest it's been in 50 years, and unless we promote a middle class as a society, we're going to have some major problems. And that's one of the issues that I think microenterprise helps to address, is try to have locally based, community-based companies that are employing people and letting those people rise up within the economic infrastructure. And I just think that that's critical. I think SNAP will be addressing that more and more in the future.
Yeah, and the more it's addressed, the more success there is, the more it compounds on itself.
Exactly.
To everybody's benefit.
Exactly.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. I'm curious, how did you arrive at SNAP yourself? What was the beginning of your relationship with SNAP?
I got involved with SNAP about 20 years ago, and I went on the lending committee. Mm-hmm. You don't know my background, but I'm a third-generation Spokane resident. My grandparents immigrated here from Sweden. Okay. We're all immigrants unless we're American Indians. And they immigrated from Sweden, and my grandfather was a cabinet maker, a small business owner. And so I spent a career in banking, and I got to a point where I said, I really want to pay it forward. I got about 10 good years left, I think, and if I can make a difference within my community that I grew up in, I'd like to do it. And so that's what I'm right in the middle of right now, is paying that back.
And is it playing out the way you had hoped it would from the...
Oh yeah. I mean, it's paid me so many dividends. I mean, it's such passionate work to be able to deal with people and to see the excitement in their eyes, because with a lot of the people that we deal with, they will actually have tears in their eyes, and they'll say, nobody has ever told me this before. And that's where I get back to the empowerment. It's just a matter of they haven't been given the information. And so if we can do that, I think we've had a successful day.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything about SNAP that you think is sort of underappreciated? I mean, that we haven't discussed. In other words, we've covered, I think, a fair amount of ground, but is there anything that is perhaps underappreciated that you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, I think what's underappreciated is the volunteers that we get. I'm just amazed every day when I look at the volunteers coming into SNAP to give back. And without the volunteers, SNAP would not be able to continue. And so what I would encourage people to do is everybody has something to give. And so I would challenge everybody to get involved in the community and give back. Everybody has wonderful, wonderful resources that they can give back, regardless of who you are. And we at SNAP would love to have you come and volunteer and help us on our mission. And there's a lot of different areas where you could help. And so that would be my challenge to our friends in the community.
Great. Well, Gary, it's been a pleasure to have you on our show today. Thank you for taking the time.
I'm glad to do it.
And hopefully we'll have you on again.
Thank you, Matthew. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Matt Koffler, and we'll catch you next time on Spokane Business Talks.
Thanks for watching. Business Talks is produced in Spokane, Washington by SpokaneTalksMedia.com, which is solely responsible for its content. Business Talks is brought to you in part by STCU and O'Brien Logistics. Ask Kent a question, recommend a guest, or hear this program again on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or SpokaneTalksMedia.com.